time just flies along, and here we are already well into February, the year well underway, and all sorts of exciting things going on. And some of you have been worrying, will we have a month ahead show for February at all? What with the year ahead for the country and the year ahead for you, and as ever, the year only really getting going in late January. It looks like it might have disappeared off the radar, but good news is it hasn't. There are only 2 weeks left in the astrological month, but this will be a great opportunity for us to talk about where you're at and just for you to check out, are you on track? So stay tuned. We will be looking at the month ahead, flying through at a slightly faster rate of knots since some of that month is already gone. We won't follow our usual format of looking also at the groupings by cardinal, fixed and mutable because, well, as I've said, half the month is already going and we just need to get to some of the nitty-gritties before we do. But before we even get there, there's just two things that we need to address. One of them is, of course, the great giveaway. We gave away 3 copies of my new book, Your Stars, which is your month-by-month account of the year ahead, just as you see it here on the show, but in considerably more detail. So that's a great way to be ahead of the game and to check it out for yourself. But like I said last week, we gave away 3 copies. Thank you for your emails. We got lots of those emails. And the lucky winners of 3 copies were Dushan Pillay, Lynn Bryant, and Janine Shefferman. Thank you so much for your entries. Sorry guys for you who didn't get picked first, but there will be more giveaways of all different sorts as the year goes by. So make sure you stay tuned and that you stay connected on Facebook so that you always know what's going on the show. One of the things I also hear about in your emails about the year ahead, and thank you for your great feedback. I'm pleased you enjoyed that show and that you like the month-by-month shows. But sometimes, especially if it's not necessarily always been your thing, it can be a little bit confusing or disconcerting to wonder about how does astrology do that, and is that really something? Is it real? Or in newspaper columns, do they just pick them out of a drawer? While it might sometimes look like that, it isn't really the case. So I just want to give you just a very quick overview of what it is that astrologers do that lets us look at the flow of time for the month ahead. Because let's face it, of course, we're not all doing the same thing, and the same thing's not going to happen to all of us. So it's easy to dismiss it on that basis. So just to reframe and give you this framework to think about what is a month ahead or what is a year ahead when we do it in this format is as follows. Personal astrology looks very closely at the position of all the planets as seen from where you were born at the time you were born, and uses a sophisticated understanding of cycles and stages in cycles and the interactions between cycles over thousands of years of shared and recorded human experience to make good judgments about how things are going to unfold. But what is it when we look at a whole population at the same time? Well, it's also something quite interesting. Our focus when looking at the year ahead and the month ahead is to use 2 of the most familiar and important cycles on the planet, and that's the cycle of the sun and the cycle of the moon. Between them, the solar cycle and the lunar cycle actually constitute our calendar, and we are, amongst other things, subject to the calendar and to the cycles of sun and moon on our planet. So one of the things we look at as astrologers is how we have our personal calendar cycles and how we respond to those things. You know, all creatures on this planet respond to the cycles of the sun and the moon. And while some of those responses are physiological, biological, and those kind of circadian rhythms, which is an amazing ability of the body to time and interact with those natural cycles, there are also greater cycles that are associated with that sun and moon as well. So what we do in astrology when we look at the month ahead is we look at both of those cycles. You think often that months are arbitrary, but they're not so arbitrary at all. They are, of course, related to the journey of the sun between the equinoxes and the solstices. That is connected to the journey of the sun through the positions in the sky that originally were associated with constellations, but which really have been stars that have allowed us to use symbols and names to record previous history and previous experience, the knowledge of our ancestors. So really what we are doing is we're using a series of calendrical cycles compared against the passed on wisdom of the ancestors in the shape of all the astrological psychology and mythology and predictions and everything that is handed down, in order to see where we are in the unfolding of those cycles. We were also born into those cycles. That's why you have a sun sign. It's really just an astrological way of saying what month were you born in, and that month relates to not seasons as in the weather as we see it out there, but stages in a cycle, which we can also call seasons. So because of we know which stage in the cycle you were born into, when we look at the various cycles that are going on at any particular time, we can see how that compares with members of your sun group, members of your month, what stage in the cycle they are, and from the combination of those two pieces of information, we get some idea of the types of things that many of you will be experiencing. Not the same things as each other, but the types of focus that all belong into that category of human experience. When we add the moon into that, well, like everyone else on this planet, we do react according to natural cycles of the moon. There are also other ways we react. Our biology and our upbringing and our personal foibles also have a lot to do with how we react. But we also creatures on a shared planet, and we're a shared humanity and a shared species, and we also react the way that human beings do. So when we combine the cycles of the sun, which gives us the types of experiences we're all having, and the cycles of the moon, which shows the different levels of reaction, all of that is understood according to where in the cycles you were born, and putting that together often gives us a meaningful and useful focus of where in our own cycles we are and where our own reactions lie. And hopefully there's enough of that information to help you on a month-by-month basis. So for Aries, this is a month about focusing on your priorities and getting your year going a little ahead of time, because your year is going to start next month and the month after the time of your birthday. But this is a time you really just need to prioritize what's going on for you and what needs to be done this year. It's a foundation month for you. This is a time when putting things in place over the course of this month actually benefits the whole year and is especially noticeable after your upcoming birthday. It does tend to be a bit of a slump in the weeks that lead up to our birthday, and over the next few weeks you're gradually going to start approaching those, so things do tend to slow down. But there's no time for you to slow down. It's a time to act with courage. There is something in your life that has basically come to an end, or basically just needs a little bit of decision making, and this is your time to be making those decisions. So act decisively, act forcefully, and don't listen to the input of others. We've gone far enough in February for you to realize that isn't serving you very well. So it's just the time to act with courage, even if they think you're being a little bit rash. You might have to do something new in order for that to happen. Whatever is on your plate, keep going, keep pushing. You're going to get to the end of the month perfectly intact and with things working well for you. Taurus, it kind of looks like they're all looking at you. It's time for you to act. Everyone is waiting for you to do something. And what might have made it more challenging over the course of this month is that you're probably going to have to do something a little bit differently. You often act out of the need for some kind of feeling of control, really just a sense of security. But this is the time to both think out of the box and act with a bit of a courage. Even if they are watching, do something unexpected. You've gone far enough into February to identify what's not working in your life, be that your professional life or your personal life. This is the time to discard what isn't working or discard who isn't working. You know who and what are the obstacles in your life. This is really about trust yourself, trust your heart, do what you don't usually do, and act on it. The same is applying to your personal life. Whatever's been going on there requires you to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit more assertive. Otherwise, you're just facing the same old stuff. Especially if during the month of February you've been facing the same old stuff and you can't believe here we are in a whole new year and it's that story again. Well, this is the time when it's time to change that story. Otherwise, same old problems are returning. Time to clear out the old and develop a whole new strategy. That's what February is all about. As for Geminis, well, you guys are the epitome of the next thing you know, it's all happening, and just 6 weeks into the year and you've already got too much on your plate. So February is the time to get your priorities straight. Even during the course of this month, more than you expected has actually developed. So you need to sort out what's important. And what's important is about you. That's not too hard. We're all a little bit selfish. And this is a great time to identify what you can put aside that you've been carrying along that is a little bit too much for others, carrying their stuff, doing too much for other people, getting caught up in trying to keep everyone happy. This is not that time. 2018 is your year that many important goals are going to come up. There's a lot of important stuff to focus on. If you're going to do this year right, then February is the month to get yourself on the track. Identify the chores and stuff that can be done with other people. Don't get tagged along. Don't do the unnecessaries. Spending a little bit of time on your own and your own goals will help you see what that bigger picture is, and maybe becoming a little bit more reserved. A lot of what you have to do is behind the scenes stuff. So maybe the fast and easy way to keep on top of it is to put your social urges aside. You love people and you love keeping them happy. Put that aside, focus on what needs to be done. You'll be okay with spending more time alone. Cancerians are dealing with a few surprises in your life. You've already discovered that February has all sorts of ingredients that might be taking 2018 into a slightly different direction than you thought. The good news is that for the most part, a lot of your responsibilities, those kind of things, are either taken care of or easily taken care of. That's not what's going to be pressing at you. What is going to be pressing at you, of course, is adjusting your plans to deal with the unexpected and not being thrown off course too much. Don't take it personally. It's not the universe or any people that are up against you. It's really just a question of learning to reflow your energy. There can be an adjustment of priorities in all of that, making sure that you're paying attention to what you should be paying attention to for yourself, the basics that you might have neglected, be it home, family, health, those kind of things, rather than the great plans or whatever else you might be looking at. In other words, this is not the time to be worrying about money and work. They mostly are under control at the moment. It's time to be worrying about what really counts. Don't lose sight of your relationships, your personal life, your health, the things that are meaningful to you, because maybe some of the changes and shake-ups and surprises over the course of the last few weeks have caught you off guard. Get your priorities in order and you'll be on top of it again. Leos might find it a little quiet now that February is on the go after quite an exciting or busy start to the year. That doesn't really mean it's just time to sit back and do nothing. On the contrary, it's time to really focus on your own skills and own things. The truth is that your relationships with others have certain responsibilities and you've kind of gotten caught up in those. And also, there's not too much you can do about it. You can't just say, okay, no, well, I'm doing my own stuff, sorry for you, because you're already in there. The good news is that there is a payoff bigger than you might realize. It's not just about you being the helpful person at this month. There is a bit of an investment going on in relationships. So that's also, as the rest of the month unfolds, it's also something that you can look at in terms of what are the duties and obligations that I have that can really benefit me in the long run. Because it's not the time to be taking charge, as Leos typically like to do. It's more about sharing and cooperation. You don't have to be thinking about what's in it for me, but you do need to ensure that it works both ways. I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine, compromise, all those things which are about equals. It's easier said than done when it comes to Leos because you are used to calling the shots, but this is a time when a little bit of investment in others benefits you in the longer run. Virgos also need a little bit of a different category this month. You might by now be feeling a little stuck, a little stymied in some way, kind of a couple of weeks into this period, and it's time to adjust some of your own strategies as well. You are very resourceful, but actually you might have to depend on someone else for the resources. So it's time to stop trying to do it all yourself and stop trying to find everything yourself and go to the next level, which is getting someone else to help you, kind of the other way around from how you usually do things. You know, this also might mean dealing with people or dealing with resources that are beyond your usual comfort zone. So a little bit of that thinking out of the box is necessary for you. People who you usually avoid, people who are not your kind, you kind of have to disturb your own pristine world this month in order for things to work better for you. Not really so surprising, because this is really about new resources helping you develop your own goals rather than you just helping everyone else, which is what it usually is. In your personal life, you need to be a little bit more careful though, because in your personal life, you might be coming across as too intense or too selfish, too focused on your stuff, and that's the last thing you mean to do. So you just need to chill, be a bit more open-minded there. Everything will land much more gently by month end. So we don't normally think of Librans as a sign of leadership, but Librans themselves know that they're perfectly capable of taking charge. What challenges that is that you've got strong social instincts and you've got a very strong need for everyone to feel peaceful and cool and fine and happy. And that can get in the way of taking charge. Well, by now you've realized that for February, you've got to stop worrying about everyone being cool and fine and actually take charge at something. At work, it's time to take things to a whole new level. You've got to stop the gentle approach, probably isn't working, and there may even be someone else in your working environment who's too much of an influence or too powerful in some way. It's time to recognize your own power as an individual. Libra is a leadership sign. Libra is a person who other people will be willing to follow if you only kind of set that example in some way. So in your working environment, you can really benefit from all of that. In your personal life, it's not so much about acting with leadership. Obviously, you want to be more cooperative, and that's an area of life where compromise is very important. But it is a great time to ask yourself, what isn't working, and maybe I just need to speak up about something. Don't be shy to speak up. It's going to end well. You're not going to set the cat among the pigeons. Time to take charge of your life. People probably wouldn't call Scorpios idealists because you're a little bit too realistic and a little bit too detached to have, too lofty or grand a goal that doesn't match how you think the world works. But having said that, you might be discovering that February is beginning to expose some of those nobler ideals, some of those bigger possibilities, and this is the time to push for them. Push for your bigger goals and set those in place. But the real challenge for February is to balance the amount of energy you're using to pursue those goals. There's a lot about balancing what you're doing now with what you plan for the future and just getting things into balance. You can use your bigger ideals that I've been speaking about to actually give you a context and some priorities to see what's important. Put some of those long-term plans into place, because in a month when your ideals are beginning to show themselves, those are the things that are going to pay off in the long run. You will need to tie up some loose ends and finish some unfinished business, and it's important that you don't get too caught up in that. We're halfway through the astrological month, so it's time to make sure you're pursuing some ideals. In your relationships, this is a great opportunity to be a little bit more proactive, not silent and broody like you usually are, but actually bring some of the ideals for the relationship into the fore. Be right open. It's probably going to work. Sagittarians, it's nothing new for you to be full of energy and full of beans and coming on really strong into your world. But this month you do need to tone that down. You might have noticed already it's ruffling a few feathers and probably not working for you. It might be seen as self-centered and that you're not really taking into account the others that you have responsibilities for at the moment. The fact is that there are others in your environment at the moment and in whatever you have to do that actually have more input or just more power than you do. And instead of reacting to that and fighting against that, you need to take a step back and just acknowledge you're not absolutely the center of the energy at the moment. It's not so much about attention, but it's just that all your energy is not going to work. So you need to accommodate the fact that someone else might have a stronger input than you at the moment. It also then gives you an opportunity to do things like tie up loose ends and address things which haven't been addressed. Fortunately, your relationship is a much more secure place at the moment. Your ability to give your energy to your partner is really serving well. You've balanced your goals more effectively, and that's going to make the relationship a source of safety and retreat for this month. Use it. So while everyone else is kind of getting their year going, Capricorns, it's been going for ages. In fact, it's probably time for you to take a break already, 6 weeks into the year. You can afford to kind of chill just a little bit, although the momentum is moving forwards and you mustn't, lose sight of the ball. You can hang back a little bit, do things like spend money on yourself, pursue some of your own personal goals. You have been pursuing everything that's got to be done, and here we are halfway into February and you still haven't really thought about yourself. So this is the time to do it. Just make sure that you give yourself some quality at this time before you start feeling stressed and frazzled so early into the year. The challenge for you is also to kind of think out of the box, as it is for some of the other signs, but in a way that might seem to be a little uncharacteristic. Get out of your usual safe routine way of doing things and try something a little bit more daring, a little bit more forceful, something that might even attract attention to yourself, something that you don't easily do. All of those things are going to get you the opportunity to do things that are more meaningful to you and give you some kind of sense of a break. The real news is, even if it's February, take a break before it's all running so fast towards those goals at the end of the year. Aquarians do need to be paying more attention to financial matters. 2017 was probably a bit of a lesson in regard to that, and hopefully you won't have to go through some of whatever the challenges were that brought that lesson home, but you still need to be careful at this early stage and during your own birth period not to let financial things get out of control. And the way to do that is to make a clear distinction between what you are responsible for and what you aren't. There is still some baggage that you've been carrying around, or simply just other people's responsibilities. And as much as you don't want to, you actually have to let go of some of that and not let things sit behind your head, as they say. It does look like your personal life is a little bit more rewarding. There seem to be people all over, and there could be new relationships in your life, new friends in your life, different social circle. Could also be because you'll find yourself living or working in different circumstances than you have before. All of that's really great. Just be sure that you want the same thing as everyone else does. You're in a situation where you can be taken a little bit of advantage of. Not because you're naive, just because it's easy to assume that two people want the same thing. Not always the case. Think about what you want. So Pisceans, of course, have been facing the last few weeks before your birthday, kind of as we speak. We're getting into that mode, and that is the mode where things are at the weakest. You'll remember what I said about sun and moon cycles earlier on, and this is when your particular sun cycle is quite low. So you may be feeling a little bit more put upon or hemmed in, your boundaries are poor, and it's time to really concentrate on standing your ground and stop making sacrifices. Although that's something normal for you to do, it's at this low point that you really can't afford to do that. You need to assert your own space. You need to kind of find your more assertive side and really make that happen. In your professional life, you can do that by bringing out some old ambitions and things you might never have thought you would do or get the chance to do, and get those onto the agenda. This is really time to take advantage of new opportunities and the things that are around you. Ironically, at a time when you might be feeling least up to it, you've got to go for it. And the way to make yourself feel up to it is just get more selfish. At the same time, you have to find a balance, because in your personal life, your relationships will obviously be adversely affected if you get a little bit too selfish. So keep it happy there, but find the strong you at work and you'll get those goals.